Hello everybody, my name is Ficht Grzegorz, and I'll be talking about centroidal control with the 5-mass model. So we've had multiple models that try to capture the dynamics of related systems, like the single mass models. You can have a flywheel on top. You can change it to 3 masses to get swing leg dynamics. You can have a 6-mass variable inertia model, the reaction mass pendulum. Usually then combine them with some inverse kinematics and dynamics to achieve fast relative joint trajectories for, let's say, walking. And the question I ask myself for this research is, are there other useful representations? And I've come up with this 5-mass model where the head and the trunk are combined in a single mass, the base link, and each limb follows has its own mass, which follows a triangle parameterization. If you look at our limbs, they are always triangles with that move on a plane, and the center of mass is always somewhere in between. And you can parameterize to get joint angles and vice versa from the mass placement. So then we formulate an inverse kinematics problem where we take the principal axis form of the inertia and we split it into a tilting inertia, which basically rotates around the center of mass, and it can also yaw around its axis. And we take this tilt inertia, which is a dumbbell and has a lower and upper mass. The lower mass is the legs, and the upper mass is the rest. And we then verify the placement of this dumbbell if it satisfies kinematic constraints, if our mass can actually reach the high from the foot positions. This is done using a virtual leg, and then if we have we're using this virtual leg, we compute the hip point, and we see if our upper mass is reachable, because we can only extend so far with the mass from our hip.
What's CRB?
CRB, composite rigid body.
Like Featherstone?
No, it's a composite rigid body. Yeah. So we assume this is a rigid body, but doesn't have to. So what do we get there is, does this work? Yeah, we get a way of controlling our center of mass and inertia in a very, very direct way, which is basically tilt this ellipsoid that you can see there. We can move it around, rotate it, and yeah, do some control there. So both my model and the reaction mass pendulum have variable inertia. What's the difference? My model is not as precise, but it's sufficiently precise. I like to say it's not just good, it's good enough. And therefore, because it's not as precise, it does not require a precise model. So it's more hardware friendly in these terms. There are often discrepancies between models and your hardware, so you can just basically change the mass distribution and account for that. And of course it allows a more direct and intuitive interaction. I move my mass here, and you know directly how your inertia changes and so on. And one very good thing is you have a direct angular position from this tilt orientation and this yaw orientation versus the angular excursions that are used in the reaction mass pendulum. So how do we make this then walk? We can generate reference trajectories using the LIPM and then put a controller on top. I use this controller made by Choi, which generates a velocity that will steer the center of mass to stability given the error on the ZMP and the desired center of mass position. And then I put a leaky integrator on top because we have a position-based system to control, and added some long-term control terms on the velocity and of step state. For the angular momentum, I implemented a zero angular centroidal angular momentum heuristic, which then I combined the angular orientation and the center of mass position into this augmented form and perform a similar controller on this augmented comp. And from there, you can basically calculate the desired inertia orientation to generate the angular momentum. And of course, I also added feedback on the stepping and the timing of the stepping. And in the end, we generated a very nice way of walking. And one nice thing is that you can see the effect of all these feedback terms and methods used and especially the inertia control that adds a nice amount of forward walking velocity that we can then stably generate. And these are some results of push recovery of the robot. Like this upper arm motion is not programmed; the robot is doing it like just using this flywheel model. Yeah, this also works while walking, but for hardware, for proper hardware results, I'm still getting there with feed-forward methods. And that would be it. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for having me.
I especially noted how you did a significant comparison of all the components in the controller and how it changed the performance. I have sort of a higher level question for you because I don't think I see enough of that in the field. I'm definitely guilty of it. So what would you recommend in your process of validating with all that?
Oh, so
what could the rest of us learn from just your process of validation?
So my process of validation was, so I want the robot to achieve a certain velocity, and I also wanted to be able to maintain that. So my test was how fast can the robot walk while it's still stable, and then I measured the integral square
you're giving me awesome detail. I'm talking bigger picture. You're just like, you're running a bunch of trials and every iteration of these things turn on and off. How much time did that add to your publication process? Because I think it's important.
So actually just computing these values was fast because everything is done like in ROS. So I can
this is all sim. I'm sorry, this is all sim. But
no, it's all like these values. Yeah, these values, they were all sim. But that was still a day of work of running the simulations and computing a sufficiently long time vector when the robot is walking.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I don't think partially understood, but it looks like you're using it approximating points that are distorting as rigid objects.
Yeah.
And then it makes it seem like you're saying you're using rigid body dynamics.
No, I didn't say that I'm using rigid body dynamics. Okay. I just approximated as a rigid body with an inertia.
But so the question is, torque on that system causes a rotation.
Yeah.
And are you using for that rotation the rotation of the principal axis of the equivalent rigid body? What I'm talking, this is a problem that when you have distorting systems, they can rotate without any torque, or applying torque doesn't.
So I do measure like the position of the robot and then also transfer that into the inertia, and from there I have an angular acceleration on this inertia, right? So that gives me.
Which isn't correct, like exactly. I'm just wondering how.
In the gist of it, it is correct, but it's not correct exactly. Yes.
But it's just a small error then.
Well, in my experience, yes. So it's generally correct. You do generate some momentum when you're tilting, and it's more accurate than just using the torso as a flag.
If we compare how accurate it is?
Yeah, so that's done in the now old ICRA paper. These curves are actually compared to a full model taken from RBDL with all the inertias included, and if you would see this is the red one is the roll axis, and the green one is the pitch axis, and the blue one is the yaw, and that's because in that publication I did not include yet the inertia of just the trunk. So if the robot would roll and yaw, they would kind of interact with each other. So there was no inertia around the spine. Yeah.
This is models for like a planar walking robot. I'm just wondering, like, how many degrees of freedom do you trim off by using this 5 mass model versus, like, let's say, just doing the rigid body mechanics?
So this generates in the end the whole the joints for a 20 degree of freedom humanoid, and I don't understand like how many joints.
That's a big, big reduction. That's what I was just trying to.
Yeah, so I go to like I think it's 11 degrees of freedom, right? Yeah, something like this, from 20. But in general, It's, let's say it's a big reduction, and this inverse kinematic problem is also quite fast.